What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to episode number 310 of the VK Bros with Jason and Alex VK. Coming at you on a quite briskly cold winter's morning. Friday morning it is, Friday the 10th of July. How are you going this week, Alex?
I had a stonking week this week, very busy. I think it was 16 degrees when I pulled in from the gym this morning, which is quite chilly. I mean, you've had some external warmthness added to your sleep last night, but we won't talk about it.
No, we won't.
Let's get started.
Are you right?
Anyway. Yeah.
All right.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, look, it has been a big week. There's a lot of things happening. I want to talk about something a little bit different. So, this was without notice, and there's been a bit of a janky start to the show already, and I've got a janky camera just to add to it as well, so apologies.
And I might have to stop to meet a plumber that's doing something in the house soon.
Yeah, so, we may have to take a pause. But I want to start out with a quick discussion around the concept of managed decline. And then I want to talk a little bit about the Indian diaspora in Australia. Okay? So I was reading a post on Instagram this week, and it put it really well. It's like, no one tells you when your country is declining as it's happening. No one knows. So a lot of countries, empires have risen and fallen throughout history, and no one tells you when you're falling. It's just little things at the beginning that you start noticing if you actually pay attention. And it's little things like, all of a sudden the trash doesn't get collected as often. So there's rubbish everywhere. All of a sudden there's, like nature strips and stuff like that are no longer well maintained. They get overgrown because maybe council cuts back on spending on the gardening services. But then you start looking around our country at the moment, and we're already experiencing things like this. So for example, this week, the Telstra outage. So many people were hugely affected by this Telstra outage that happened on Wednesday. It literally knocked out the entire Victorian regional train network because they are dependent on one cell phone carrier.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's a paramedic. There was a Vodafone outage about 2 weeks ago. Their phone they receive calls on to attend your premises when you need help is on the Vodafone network. She couldn't get calls. She had a very quiet day, but maybe some people died.
Yeah.
And it's the little things that when you look around, they start to add up. So you've got this Telstra outage. You've got, people are unable to access medical services. So how often do you try to go to the doctors and there's no appointments, or they don't bulk bill anymore, or you have to take your kid to the emergency room, and instead of getting straight in because a kid's got an emergency, you have to sit in the emergency room for 14 hours, which we experienced a lot during COVID, for example.
I can tell you there's also one at Toyota. So Toyota's system has been down for months and months and months.
Right.
And they have a very comprehensive DMS system that basically every function of every dealership plugs into the system.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to order parts for 6 months.
Wow. So, right. And again, the fact that that's not immediately fixed shows that we are in this period of what people often call managed decline. And what managed decline essentially means is this. Our ruling class, so our politicians and the oligarchs, if you want to call them, they've given up trying to improve the nation and make the nation a better, more prosperous place to live. The phase that the politicians are in at the moment is, how can we extract as much wealth for ourselves from a sinking ship before we abandon it? And this is happening in the West all throughout the world. So the only place in the big Western countries this isn't happening is the United States.
Yep.
So Donald Trump...
Arguably, I'd say Donald Trump is also extracting a lot of wealth for himself.
I would agree, except for the fact he has actually taken steps to improve the wealth of his nation.
For sure.
Right?
Yep.
So, again, we've discussed this before, you don't have to like everything Donald Trump does. We supported Donald Trump because he ran on this platform of no more wars, and they've gotten involved in more conflicts, and we disagree with that. But then you look at what the flow-on effect is for the US with that. They're literally making themselves into the energy superpower of the world. Yep. So in a global race where, let's be honest, the biggest difference between being a third world nation and being a first world nation is access to cheap, reliable fossil fuels. That is the key difference. So, in a world where you've got the European Union, who's essentially gone socialist and made energy far more expensive, so then everyone suffers. Same in Australia, same in New Zealand, same in Canada. So, Canada's basically having this extraction thing happening under Mark Carney, and we called it when he was made Prime Minister in the first place. That dude is a central banker. He has been at the forefront of like all these major financial collapses. He was making the decisions when these things happened, like around the GFC and those sorts of things. So we're in this period where we have a political class that is trying to just extract wealth out of the country for themselves before they potentially abandon a sinking ship. And it's something that you guys really need to understand, because there is a reason why you feel like you are working harder than you've ever had to work to pay the bills. We are taxed higher than Australians have ever been taxed in the history of this country, and yet we have less to show for it. We are receiving less services. The services are becoming less reliable. Like, that's because we're in this wealth extraction period. Now, the reason why I want to start off by talking about that is because we have had, or I think he's still here, we've had a visit this week from the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. And he has been welcomed with massive applause by Albanese and particularly down in Victoria. And there's a speech here, a little speech I want to play from Jacinta Allen, where she is talking about, like, because there was this massive event down in Victoria with Modi at the event. And they made all these speeches and stuff like that. I just want you to play this clip and then we can discuss it afterwards.
Mr. Modi, I do invite you to take this message back home with you to India. Victoria respects India. We value your people. We welcome your students, your businesses, your families, your ideas. In Victoria, the Indian community is not just accepted, they are part of who we are. India is not just a country we trade with, it is a country we trust. Let me say this to Victoria's great, strong Indian community who are here tonight. You are welcome here. Your children never have to choose between being proudly Indian and proudly Victorian, because in this state you can be both. And here in Victoria, you can be whoever you want to be, yet stay who you are. Prime Minister Modi, thank you. Thank you for honouring Melbourne and Victoria with your visit. Prime Minister...
Do you have any thoughts on that before I start?
Look, I don't know why she's dressed like the Riddler. For audio viewers, she's wearing like a bright green silk jacket with matching silk green pants and a green shirt.
It's probably appropriate considering that Victoria's and Melbourne is fast becoming the Gotham City of Australia.
Yeah, it is too. It is too.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I see that she's trying to appease. Modi is a very, very, very important leader in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It is the fastest growing economy on the planet.
Yep.
It's the fastest growing economy on the planet. It's the fastest growing population on the planet. They are very, very significant. So
Mm-hmm.
I can see a world where you'd want to do business with them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what business we're doing besides having their students.
Well, that next story I sent you is about this, but continue.
Look, it doesn't offend me as much as what I was kind of expecting.
Okay. So offense was not the point of playing that clip. Here is the point of playing the clip. Someone made a really interesting point about this on X during the week, where don't you find it interesting how, so when Albanese visits different countries, he is greeted by those leaders of those countries, showing off the culture of that country. So you see it all the time, right? He'll go to Fiji, and then there's the photo ops where he's wearing the like flowers around his neck and the traditional Fijian dress. Or then he'll go to India and they'll put on a Bollywood performance for him, and he'll dress up in Indian garb, and etc. etc. Why is it that when leaders from countries like India come to our country, they are not greeted with Australian culture? We pander to their culture while they're
Yeah,
here.
interesting. And I would say you've never seen Trump put on any costumes.
No, he doesn't, right?
He also staunched King Charles too. You're not supposed to touch him on the elbow when he shook his hand. He staunched him.
Yeah, which again, like that is like you guys might not understand this, but it's a power game.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, by essentially greeting a foreign leader with their own culture when they arrive in our country is essentially saying we are subservient to you.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
A good point. Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good spot.
Yeah. So
it's been a thing we've done all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But like having us like you've seen clips of us like our politicians dancing in like foreign countries.
Yep.
No, you shouldn't be dancing.
No. Why are you making a fool of yourself? It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's literally going to another country and they say dance monkey and we dance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and again, like as a country like ours who we want to be taken seriously on the world stage, essentially what we are saying to these other countries is we are not a global power. We are the little brother of the world, and whatever you tell us to do, we will do those things. And that's not how you gain respect on the world stage. Now, the second thing that I'll say on this, it is not a coincidence to me that a political party like Labor, who is becoming exceedingly unpopular with the native population, is now pandering so much to the largest ethnic voting bloc that we have in this country and the fastest growing ethnic voting bloc that we have in this country. So let me like paint a picture for you. We have something like, I think there's about 1 million either permanent or temporary residents from India in Australia at the moment. We only have a country of 28 million people. So 1 million is a significant proportion of our population. And you got to think India's country, they've got what, 1.4 billion people that live there?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who live in India who probably want to come to Australia. I would say there is a far smaller amount, just purely based on numbers, that want to move from Australia to go and live in India. Okay?
Yeah.
So the biggest winner out of this relationship at the moment is India. It's not Australia.
Yeah.
Australians are not going to improve their quality of life by moving to India on the majority of cases. Okay?
Yeah.
But Indians will largely improve their quality of life by moving here.
But also, I would also say that like I said, the business that we're doing with them is nothing but selling tertiary education spots, and
but
that's not that lucrative.
And again, you have to think about this in terms of what is best for our country. If we are doing international trade, it has to be for the benefit of the country. What is the key point about international students when it comes to whether or not it's good for the country? Do you remember?
Well, where are they going to live?
The universities do not need to pay income tax on income derived from foreign students.
Yeah.
So if our export is bringing their students here, yes, the universities win, the taxpayer doesn't. We don't generate any tax out of it. And also, you got to remember, 1.4 billion people in their country, there's only a limited amount of university spots in this country, which essentially means like those universities are incentivized to target foreign students, whether they're from India or not. This is not a racism thing.
Yeah.
But they are incentivized to target foreign students instead of domestic students because they make almost double the money out of it because they don't have to pay tax on that income. So it's not a benefit to the taxpayer. There is a residual benefit in that having more people come here increases GDP. There's more consumption into the economy. There is that sort of side benefit, but it's like the worst form of trickle-down economics you can get.
Yeah, let me pause on that for a moment. The biggest problem is we're only working on demand side of the economy, which is inflationary. We need to work on supply side, increasing the productivity to add more things to the market.
Yes.
Because at the moment, we're adding more dollars chasing the same items, which drives prices up.
Absolutely. And this is a thing, right? So another story that came out this week is the latest numbers on nationwide rents have just come out. And it's been about a quarter since the government announced their changes to CGT and negative gearing laws, right? And what did their modelling say, guys? Their modelling said rents would only go up by $2 a week over the first 12 months.
Yeah.
It's been 3 months. Rents in Sydney have gone up by $50 a week. The average rent around the entire nation has gone up $21 a week. So 10 times.
I don't really care about that because that's pretty standard. It's pretty standard to your rents to always go up by about $50. It has done essentially forever.
Except,
so I'm not
okay, but the point that I'm making,
the point is that they said it was good. It was only going to, like, I can easily see where they're saying they're modeling on the aspect that they have changed in the economy was going to drive it by $2. But the reality is it was already going to go up by 50. Again, okay, I don't think it's a huge deal.
But again, here's the point that I want to make to the people, because this is the lesson out of it. Modeling is always fraud. It is always fraud.
Totally.
It is designed to sell bad policy to apathetic citizens who don't pay attention. So again, talking about modeling, they said rents would only go up by $2. They've gone up by an average of 21 around the whole country. They modeled during COVID that if we did nothing, didn't do the lockdowns and the vaccine rollout, that 200,000 people would die. And that was bullshit. The climate modeling is all wrong. So another big story out of this week, I don't know if you saw it, is someone did just finally do an audit into the, what's it called? The not the Bureau of Statistics, but the who measures the temperature in this country again?
Not the CSIRO?
I can't remember. Whichever the body is that observes weather trends in this country, and it has been shown that over 100, like from going back to 100 years ago, they have replaced the actual statistical data with these homogenized data sets to show artificial warming, which is something that Jared Rennick was talking about when he was in Parliament a few years ago, right? So again, the point is not whether or not rents are going to go up or not. The point is this. When the government comes out and says the modelling says this, you need to understand the modelling says what the government wants it to say at the time to manufacture your consent to go along with bad policy. Okay? But I want to return back to the Indian thing because I think it's important.
Can we just pause quickly on modelling? Because I can show you a real world account of how this costs Australia billions of dollars, which is in regards to the Great Barrier Reef. So the models were showing that the Great Barrier Reef, the coral, was dying at a rapid rate.
Yep.
It's actually the highest level it's been for 100 years.
Yeah, and that's why I stopped talking about it.
But and because of it, tourism has dropped, and the latest accounts, they reckon it's cost them $6 billion
in tourism.
Tourism,
which makes a lot of sense because 20 years ago there was a coral bleaching event, and the climate hysteria people came out and said this is because of climate change and it's going to be irreversible. 20 years later, we're at record coral coverage in the Great Barrier Reef, and no one knows about it because it doesn't fit that climate narrative, right? And again, the modeling was wrong. So again, the point is, whenever the government says model, when they're trying to talk about policy, you need to understand it's fraud.
Yeah.
It's not useless, it's fraud.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it, for sure.
Okay, so getting back to the Indian diaspora thing, you are seeing Albanese in particular, but obviously Jacinta Allen, pandering to the largest ethnic voting bloc in the nation. It is not a coincidence that when they're becoming exceedingly unpopular with the domestic population, they're now pandering to the population which, let's be real, have had a massive uplift in their living standards by moving here in the first place. Right? A lot of the people who have moved here from quote-unquote shithole countries they're the only people in the country who have had a raise in living standards.
Yeah. Yep.
Everyone else has gone backwards. But I want people to remember this. Albanese and the Labor government have a gigantic majority in Parliament at the moment. They secured that majority with only 4 million primary votes. We have 1 million Indians who live here in this country now, and we've just made it easier for them to come over. So what happens to Albanese's majority if he adds an extra 1 million votes over the next 3 years before the next election?
Yeah, it is. It's really cementing their power base.
Absolutely. So again, this is not racist to discuss. The fact that they call you racist for discussing it means they are trying to stop you from discussing it in the first place. This is what we spoke about years ago in regards to this idea of the Great Replacement Theory, right? They've realized their own native peoples have got the shits with them and that their living standards are going backwards. So what's the answer? Bring in people from the worst part of the world because they will enjoy a higher living standard and you can just rule over them because their voting blocks are going to be bigger. Like it's a numbers game. You know, you've got Australians complaining they can't afford to have children now because of cost of living. Well, we are like India. I don't think they've got any problems having kids. That's why they've got 1.4 billion people. That's a cultural thing for them. So whether this happens right now, whether it happens in the next 3 years is irrelevant. In 20 years' time, if we continue down this road, this country will be majority Indian.
Yeah.
And this is where the left gets tripped up. Because they think that the Indians will support Labor forever. They won't.
They won't. No. They're smart.
So this is what happened, and I posted a reel about this, and I understand, guys, I'm probably all over the joint, and this is like that meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Charlie in front of the board, and he's like, looks crazy, and he's pointing at all the red lines and shit.
Yeah.
I understand that some of this stuff probably sounds a bit confusing, but trust me, it makes sense when you think about it, because this has happened throughout history. And I posted a reel about this. It was a lady talking, it was an Iranian lady talking about how this essentially happened in Iran back in the 70s. So back in the 70s, you had the same alliance. They call it the Red-Green Alliance. It's essentially the socialist communists aligned with the Islamic fundamentalists. And they call it the Red-Green Alliance. And it happened in Iran. And at the time, the lefties, the socialists, the communists, they thought they were using the Islamic voting bloc as their useful idiots to take power in the country. And then when they did take power, guess what happened? The Islamic fundamentalists turned on the leftists first.
Yeah.
Because they literally said, if you had enough power to overcome the previous rulers of this country, then you were a problem. So the first people they removed was the socialists and the communists because they wanted to maintain power.
Didn't Yuri Bezmenov talk about this?
Yes, because this is a playbook that's been tried and true throughout history.
Yeah, so he basically said the leftists are the useful idiots
Correct.
that you use to get your policies in, and then they're the first people you get rid of.
Absolutely, because again, they're dangerous. They're a destabilizing force. They are deliberately used as a destabilizing force. And again, so you have to just think about where we're at as a country. We are literally in a country now where you are told if you celebrate your own Australian heritage and culture that you are a racist. Meanwhile, we bring leaders from other nations to our country and we welcome them with the red carpet and a display of how dominant their culture has become in our country.
Yeah.
It is not racist to point that out.
No.
And
I would be happy to say to a leader of a foreign country, like, we're going to look after your people. They're going to make great Australians.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to bring up the next article because this is a key point as well. And I actually had to go to Reddit to get a copy of this article because every other one is behind a paywall. So I just want to read this out to you.
This does not format well.
Yeah, okay. So I'll read it. I won't read the whole thing, but you'll get the point. So,
can you read that?
Yeah, I can read it. So federal agencies $258 million India loan questioned as local manufacturers struggle. Australia's Federal Export Credit Agency has come under fire for granting a $258 million loan to an Indian government-owned renewables company with no connections to Australia. An Indian government-owned renewable energy company has been guaranteed $250 million despite it having no connections to Australia or local businesses here. The federal government's export credit agency, Export Finance Australia, or the EFA, granted a $258 million loan to Indian renewables financier Power Finance Corporation in September last year. The finance was guaranteed despite the company having no connections with Australian businesses or products. The opposition has criticised the massive loan for coming at a time when local manufacturing industries are fighting to get government support as they struggle under soaring energy prices, competition with cheap imports, and global trade shifts. EFA Chief Executive John Hopkins told Senate estimates on Friday evening that the publicly funded investment was made to the Indian government-owned company to show Australian companies that there were opportunities in the region. During questions from Nationals leader Matt Canavan, Mr. Hopkins defended the loan, saying it advanced Australia's strategic aims in the Indo-Pacific region. In quotes, often the benefit of these transactions includes Australian direct participation, but also strategic benefit, he said. It's challenging to transact in India, and we need to show Australian companies that there are opportunities in India. So look, I'm not going to read the whole thing because that's the guts of it. But again, that is completely incongruent with what the EFA is supposed to do. Yeah. The EFA, it's export finance. Keyword being export. Exporting Australian business to other countries, right? The whole reason why that organization began back in 1991, the whole point of it was to help Australian companies get footholds and do business in other nations, which then sends wealth back to our country. That's the whole point of it. So they're trying to say, oh, we're just trying to show Australian businesses that there's opportunities in India. But you've not financed an Australian business in India to do business in India and send money home. You have financed an Indian government-backed business to do business in India with no Australian involvement.
Do you know why? Because even our own government knows that there is no point in investing in Australian businesses.
Look, that is potentially part of it. But at the same time, too, when the same government is actively pandering to the Indian voting bloc, it's convenient that they're sending $258 million of taxpayer-backed money to an Indian government-run renewables business that has no benefit to Australians at all.
Yeah.
So this is part of that extraction of wealth process that I was talking about before. And now you've also there was a story about Australian Super. So Australia's largest superannuation company is now looking at doing a $500 million investment in India. So that is Australian...
I think it's proving me my point.
Your point? So what's your point?
My point is that Australia is uninvestable, and even our own even our own investment vehicles here in our country know that.
So I agree with you.
If you knew you were going to make a great return, so the way these investment things work, you have to deploy a certain amount of capital. You got to get your capital.
Otherwise, you don't get a return.
Yeah, there's no point in sitting on all this money. You have to deploy it. And you have to deploy it somewhere that's going to make you some money.
Yep.
And this is proving to me, which is something we've been banging on for literally years now, Australia is uninvestable. We don't do it. And the reason why we don't do it is because the government stands in the way. And now this is proving that even the government realizes you can't make money here, so they have to make it offshore.
And the fact that they, instead of trying to fix the problem to make our country profitable, and they are allowing this money to be invested offshore, proves what I was saying at the beginning of this about the wealth extraction period we are now in. So while we are still a relatively wealthy country, the political class is trying to send as much of that wealth to overseas countries as they can. And again, look at all the other government decisions that they've been trying to make recently. It's all about increasing taxes. They're literally trying to rob you more and more every single day. And these CGT and negative gearing changes, which again, don't forget, they grandfathered in their own investments, right? So when you're talking about trying to extract as much wealth as you can, okay, well, let's tax all the regular citizens even more, but let's protect our own investments at the same time. Let's protect our, parliamentary guaranteed pension scheme, but we're going to talk about trying to means test your grandmother's, include her primary place of residence in her means test for her pension, so she gets paid less of a pension. This is the managed decline that we have been talking about for many years, and it is accelerating under this government.
Yeah, so we do have. It's funny because the thread that's going through my mind at the moment while you're talking is we know that these guys are communists.
Mm-hmm.
We can tell by all their policies that they don't want businesses to thrive. They want you to work for the government. They don't care what the financial ramifications of this are. They clearly don't care, and this is proving, that they want to invest somewhere else. And then it reminds me of the story of the Soviet Union when communism hit there, and they couldn't feed their people. The farmers stopped producing because it didn't matter. The government centralized the value of the grain, and therefore, if you generated heaps of grain, you got the same amount of money as the farm next door that produced no grain.
Yep. So there was no incentive to produce as much grain as you could.
Yep. And they starved. People starved. And Lenin had to introduce, as a fix for that, a market for grain, a free market for grain. And that's what got people producing again. And then as soon as Stalin got in after Lenin, he got rid of it and people starved again. Right. And this is just another data point that adds to the fact that we are on the wrong page. We're heading down the wrong direction. Now, I just looked up, in terms of Australia's debt to GDP, we are extremely rich by comparison. Yep. We're ahead of Japan, we're ahead of America, we're ahead of everyone in the EU.
Yeah.
We were, before COVID, we're at 50% debt to GDP. We're heading up 51, 52%, depending on who you ask.
Yep.
So it is trending in the wrong direction. But it kind of shows that if in 5 years you can move it 2 points in the wrong direction, it won't take long until we're basically at what some of these really terrible countries are at.
Yeah.
And the alarm bells for me. So yes, have we got money in the bank to do this? Yeah, we do. The problem is it's eventually going to run out, and at what cost to the livelihoods of the people that actually have to live in this society.
Yep.
Which is what you're putting across. Our tangible living standards are dropping. First time in what do they say? It's 30 or 40 years. The first time that in the West that our quality of life has gone down. The alarm bells for me is that the governments aren't talking it outside of America. No one's fixing it.
Correct, because there's no interest in fixing it.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. So I was listening to, and I've got some good news about this too that I'll share in a bit, but I'll just add a bit more context. So this morning I was listening to Rupert Lowe on Joe Rogan's.
Yep.
And I would encourage all of you to go and listen to that, because I think Rupert Lowe he's one of these guys who I think lefties and young people in general do not understand. Rupert Lowe is an independently wealthy person. A lot of young people have been psyoped into thinking that billionaires only care about themselves and that rich people only care about themselves. But you need to understand that there are types of, and I can't speak for women because I'm not one, but I know that I've got this within myself. And I think that us doing this show every single week for free is proof that there is this spirit in some certain types of men. But people generally go through different phases of life. So when you're like 0 to 18, you're a child, you're trying to learn how the world works. When you're 18 to say 40, you're focused on, I've got to make money, I've got to get somewhere, I've got to get a career, if I want a family, I'm going to start my family. And then when your kids no longer need you anymore, when they're old enough to move out and whatever, you start thinking about other ways that you can be helpful and useful. And I think young people have been psyoped into thinking that rich people don't care about their countries. That's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
And again, you just have to think about, even if you want to look at it through the lens of dollars and cents, guess what? If you're a rich person, it's probably because you started businesses which were successful. If there are no young people coming through who are able to create enough wealth to spend money, your business dies.
Yeah.
Right? It is good for the rich people if the rest of the country is doing well. It is not good for the rich people if the rest of the country is doing poorly. It's just not. And so
rich people don't extract from private businesses don't extract from marketplaces. They add to it.
They create wealth.
Yeah. So the only person that's extracting. So when you're saying that Elon Musk is stealing from you, he's not. But guess what? Everyone in government is.
Exactly. And I think we said this last week, right? If you don't like Elon Musk, you don't have to buy a Tesla. You don't have to buy Starlink. You don't have to use any of his products. You can choose not to. You have to pay your taxes to the government. Yeah. And when the government increases the taxes, you have to pay those taxes. And if you don't, they will send people with guns to your house and they'll put you in a cage, right? Who are the real people extracting wealth from the people? It's these leeches who are these politicians. But again, so going back to someone like a Rupert Lowe. Rupert Lowe, I look at as what I would call a true believer. And I said the same thing about Donald Trump when he campaigned for the last presidency. Donald Trump is the only US president in history who came out of his first term of office poorer than when he went in.
Yeah.
Everyone else comes out richer. Even Stephen A. Smith, who has been a Democrat his entire life, said something recently. He's like, I'm still finding it difficult to understand how Barack Obama went into office with a net worth of about $1 million and came out 8 years later with a net worth of $200 million when his salary was only $400,000 a year.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Right? It makes no sense. So you got guys like, and again, look at Trump. Trump survived multiple assassination attempts. Trump also survived reputation assassination for a decade and everything else that was thrown his way. He was already independently wealthy. He was already a billionaire. He didn't need to run for the presidency again.
Yeah.
But I believe he did it because he wanted to turn America into the centralized superpower of the world again. And he is doing that. And whether you like it or not, the decisions he has made is doing that.
Yeah, you see news this week that Hamas is dissolving its government and handing over leadership to the UN.
Yeah.
That's Trump.
That's Trump. Abraham Accords. But the number one thing is he's identified the fact that energy superiority is what will decide who runs the world for the foreseeable future. And he has made moves to ensure that US is the energy superpower of the world. Rupert Lowe is the same sort of thing. He didn't need to run for politics. He saw his country that he loves declining, and he's trying to fix it.
Yeah.
You need to back people like that. Yeah. And this is the thing that I think is so special about the US, but it is also so special about Australia. We are fortunate to be blessed with so many natural gifts that other countries do not have. So like you were saying before, we have seen how far we have fallen in the last 5 years under this one government. And you can see how much that may accelerate if we continue on this pathway. But it also means because we have these natural gifts, we can turn this around very quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? It's not that hard to actually do it. And look, we discuss this stuff all the time, so we're not going to go into all the details of how you would do it. But the number one change that needs to happen, things need to get bad enough for people for them to break free of the psyop that Labor, Liberal are the best way and they care about you. And, particularly left-wing people, do not pretend that the Labor politicians who come out saying they care the most about the poor people and the downtrodden and the minorities, when the policies they put in place affect those people the most. So give you an example, climate change. Climate policy and climate hysteria is all based around some modeled future catastrophic event that may affect people in the future. But the reality is the policy today means poor people have to die in sacrifice to the climate gods. And that sounds like hyperbole. It's not. The people who are least equipped to deal with higher energy prices are the poorest people in society. Right? We covered it. We're talking about the UK. I never realised that the UK and in Europe, they're so adverse to air conditioning. I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
So when we hear about heat waves in the UK, and then we're like, what are you talking about? It's only 32 degrees. It's because air conditioning is like illegal in so many parts of Europe.
Got to pause.
All right, pause. Okay, we're back. But yeah, so I didn't realise that in Europe, it was like illegal to install air conditioning in so many places. And it's obvious.
They had them removed. I think they were incentivizing you to remove them.
Yeah. And so again, this is one of those things, right? Who dies the most from heat and cold stress? Old people.
Old people.
So we have said that old people need to die and poor people need to die, because I'm sure the rich people can still get air conditioning in their places. But poor people and old people need to die to be sacrificed on the altar of climate science and some future outcome that's been modelled, and we all know how incorrect all this modelling is. But
model that. model the effects of heat, no air conditioning on a community.
But you can't model that because then you can't manufacture consent from the governed to do these ridiculous policies. So, look, we do have to wrap it up, but I do want to finish on a positive note. The fact is this, guys. We are blessed in this country with amazing natural resources, with one of the biggest advantages that any country can have in that we are surrounded by oceans, so we are relatively safe because you can't just invade us by walking across the border. You have to come a long way to invade, which means as bad as the country is getting, we can turn this around so quickly. But the number one key to turning it around is changing the mindset of the people. And here's the lesson I want to give everyone. The number one thing I learned out of COVID was that when good people shut their mouths and say nothing to their friends and family, bad things are allowed to happen. Right? The vaccine mandates only stopped because we hit a critical mass of people speaking out against them. We can do the same thing with this stuff. And the number one key is, at the moment, the most viable option we have in the next federal election to try to turn this stuff around is One Nation. Do not feel like you are a minority and therefore unsafe if you want to voice your support of One Nation. The latest polls over the last 6 months have shown roughly 30% of the country agrees with you. And you got to think, those are the people who are willing to speak up publicly about it. It is probably far higher than that amount. Look at what happened with the Voice referendum. Everyone thought that the people voting no for the Voice were racists and a minority. And then 65% of the country voted against it. Right?
Yeah, we all are.
So the silent majority needs to start speaking up with common sense, with respect. Obviously, this isn't about racism. It's about doing what's right for the country first, because until we are in a safer, more financially secure position, we can't help people elsewhere in the world. You got to help yourself first. That's rule number one. Get the family home sorted. Get your local community sorted. Get your town sorted. Get your state sorted. Then get your country sorted. Then we can worry about other people. But we can turn this around. But the number one key is we have to work our way out of it, like what the Argentinian citizens have had to do, right? 50% of the country lost welfare in the first 12 months. There was collateral damage that came with that. But the country is in a far better position now 12 months later because they ripped the Band-Aid and did the hard thing than they were if they kept going down the same destructive pathway. We can turn this around, but you have to talk about it and you have to be about it.
Yeah, 100%. I would say I heard something funny in the gym this morning. It's kind of in line, kind of not, but I just thought it's worth mentioning. Someone made some swipe at Trump this morning, and a girl who I didn't know was an ally of mine goes, "Oh, everyone voted for him," and I was like, "Yeah, only by an overwhelming majority."
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So, like, there is a bit of the people that haven't said anything probably side with us.
Absolutely. And you need to understand too, this is the point you make all the time. Throughout history, the people imposing censorship were never the good guys. At the moment, in the West, it is leftists that are imposing censorship on everyone else. Through reputation destruction, cancellations, look what they just did to Karl Stefanovic, look what they've tried to do to Pauline Hanson for 30 years. They are imposing censorship because they understand that a lot of their ideas and their policies do not stand up to scrutiny. So instead
the only way to get their message across is by shunning opposition. Their ideas do not stand on their own 2 feet. They have to silence you or they have to use violence.
Yeah, and it's ad hominem attacks, right? So this is how it always goes down. Conservative or right-wing leaning person says, hey, I think this policy is bad. I think we should try this policy. Leftist politician says, that person's a bad person because he's a bigot. And then everyone goes, ooh, I don't want to be labeled the bad name too, so I'm just going to have to go with the status quo. That's how they operate. And I want you guys to keep an eye out for this, whether it is in politics or whether it is in social media or online. Look at who does the majority of the name calling when there is a discussion about any of these sorts of policies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying right-wing people don't call names. They absolutely do. but it is not the go-to response for most right-leaning people.
And you know why? It's because the ideas are so easy to ridicule.
Yeah.
You don't need to ridicule the person because the ideas are moronic.
Exactly right. And again, as a leftist, they understand that the idea doesn't stack up to scrutiny. So we shift the focus of the argument from the idea itself to ad hominem attacks back and forth, because then nothing changes. That's how they control.
100%.
All right. And on that note, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you all next week.
Bye.